The scanners weren't supposed to pick up anything on RS-471. This barren rock at the edge of contested space had been abandoned for decades, or so the official reports claimed. Yet there it was, an unmistakable energy signature pulsing beneath the planet's violet-tinged atmosphere. Lieutenant Sarah Chen stared at the readout, her dark eyes narrowing as she cross-referenced the signal pattern. "Captain Morrison, you need to see this," she called out, her voice echoing through the bridge of the survey vessel Hawking. Morrison appeared at her shoulder, his weathered face reflecting in a holographic display. "Talk to me, Chen. What are we looking at?" "Biosignatures, sir. Strong ones. But they're wrong somehow." Sarah's fingers danced across the console, bringing up detailed spectral analyses. The energy patterns match Arcturus military tech, but they're merged with organic readings I've never seen before. The captain's jaw tightened. The Arcturus Confederation had withdrawn from this sector after the Harmony Accords, supposedly taking all their research with them. Finding their abandoned tech could trigger an interstellar incident, or worse, reveal whatever they'd been desperate enough to leave behind. "How many in your survey team, Lieutenant?" "4, sir. Myself, Brooks on xenobiology, Rodriguez on security, and Wei for tech analysis." Morrison nodded slowly. "Take the shuttle down. Minimal footprint, Level 2 containment protocols. I want to know what we're dealing with before I notify command." The descent through RS-471's atmosphere was smooth despite the swirling purple clouds. Their shuttle, designed for stealth, barely disturbed the air as it glided toward the coordinates of the energy signature. As they drew closer, Sarah's instruments began picking up more detail and more questions. "These readings," Brooks muttered from his station, "they're showing signs of genetic manipulation. Whatever's down there, it's not natural to this environment." Rodriguez checked her pulse rifle for the third time. "Wonderful. Just what we needed. Someone's science experiment gone wrong." The shuttle touched down on a rocky plateau overlooking a sprawling complex of partially collapsed buildings. The architecture was unmistakably Arcturus, all sweeping curves and biomimetic materials that seemed to grow from the very rock. But now it lay in ruins, victim to time and the planet's harsh environment. "Atmosphere's breathable, but thin," Wei reported as they suited up. "Temperatures hovering around -10°C. Whatever's living here must be tough." Sarah led the team toward the nearest structure, their boots crunching on frost-covered gravel. The building's entrance had been torn open long ago, its security systems dark and dead. As they moved inside, their lights revealed corridors lined with broken stasis tubes and scattered research equipment. "This was a weapons development facility," Rodriguez said, examining markings on the wall. "Look at these warning symbols. They were working with biological agents." "Not just any biological agents," Brooks interrupted, his scanner whirring. "They were trying to create the perfect predator. These genetic sequences, they're incredible. Enhanced strength, intelligence, sensory capabilities beyond anything natural evolution could produce." A low rumble echoed through the complex, making them all freeze. It wasn't mechanical. It was alive. And it was close. "Movement," Rodriguez whispered, her rifle raising. 3 o'clock, large chamber ahead. They approached cautiously, Sarah's heart pounding against her ribs. The chamber opened into what must have been the main research area. Massive tanks lined the walls, most shattered, their contents long since escaped or expired. But in the center of the room, "Oh my God," Sarah breathed. Curled in a defensive position was a creature unlike anything she'd ever seen. It stood as tall as a horse at the shoulder, its body covered in iridescent scales that shifted between deep blue and midnight black. A row of mural spines ran down its back, pulsing faintly with bioluminescence, but it was the eyes that caught Sarah's attention. Golden, intelligent, and filled with both fear and fierce determination. Because behind the creature, barely visible, were 3 small forms. Cubs. And they were alive. "Nobody move," Sarah commanded softly. "Brooks, What are we looking at? The xenobiologist consulted his scanner, his voice trembling with excitement. They're calling it Project Nexus in the files. An attempt to create the ultimate pack hunter by combining predator species from a dozen worlds. Enhanced intelligence, adaptive camouflage, neural links for pack coordination. This shouldn't be possible. The adult Nexus hound. Sarah couldn't think of it as just an experiment. Watched them warily. Its neural spines flickered in patterns that suggested communication. But with whom? The cubs. Each other? They abandoned them. Sarah realized, noting the empty food dispensers, the signs of desperate scavenging. When the project was shut down, they just left them here to die. Rodriguez kept her rifle trained on the creature. These things were designed as weapons, Lieutenant. They're dangerous. Everything's dangerous when it's fighting to survive. Sarah countered. She took a slow step forward, her hands open. The Nexus hound's spines flared, but it didn't attack. Instead, it made a sound, not a growl, but something almost like speech. Brooks, Sarah called quietly. What's the status of the cubs? Weak vital signs. They're starving, Lieutenant. Without intervention. He left the sentence unfinished. Sarah made her decision. She reached into her pack and pulled out an emergency ration bar. The adult's nostrils flared, catching the scent of food. Slowly, carefully, she unwrapped it and broke off a piece, tossing it halfway between them. The Nexus hound's eyes tracked the food, but it didn't move. Instead, one of the cubs wobbled forward, desperate with hunger. The adult let it approach the food, watching Sarah and her team for any threatening movement. Lieutenant, Rodriguez warned. Protocol says. Protocol didn't account for this. Sarah interrupted. She broke off another piece of the ration bar. Sometimes being human means knowing when to break the rules. The cub had devoured the first piece and was looking at her with desperate hope. As she tossed the second piece a little closer to herself, she saw something remarkable. The adult's neural spines shifted color, matching the pattern of her uniform. It was trying to communicate. Captain, she made her calm, we're going to need the containment bay prepared. And sir, we're going to need to keep this quiet for a while. Explain, Morrison's voice crackled back. Sarah watched as the second and third cubs crept forward, their own tiny neural spines glowing with mixed fear and hope. The adult's eyes never left her face. Because, sir, she replied, I think we just found something that changes everything we thought we knew about alien life. And if we do this right, we might just make some remarkable new allies. The Nexus hound's spines flickered again, this time in a pattern that reminded Sarah of stars. Perhaps it was remembering home, or perhaps it was trying to tell her something else entirely. Either way, she knew that this discovery would reshape humanity's place in the galaxy, if they could keep these remarkable creatures safe long enough to understand them. We're not leaving them behind, she said firmly, both to her team and to the creatures before them. Not this time. The containment bay of the Hawking wasn't designed to house a family of genetically engineered predators. Sarah watched through the observation window as the adult Nexus hound paced the reinforced enclosure, its neural spines pulsing with bands of copper and azure. The cubs huddled together in a nest they'd made from emergency blankets, their own spines giving off a softer, synchronized glow. Their metabolic readings are stabilizing, Brooks reported, scrolling through data streams on his tablet. But there's something else you need to see, Lieutenant. He pulled up a neural scan, pointing to patterns of activity that sparkled like constellations. This isn't just basic animal intelligence. Their brains are showing signs of complex problem-solving, emotional processing, even what might be linguistic centers. Sarah pressed her hand against the window. The adult, whom she'd started calling Aurora for the way its spines shimmered like the northern lights, turned to look directly at her. Those golden eyes held something that went beyond animal awareness. They were trying to create the perfect weapon, Rodriguez said from her security station, where she monitored the creatures day and night. But they created something that could think for itself instead. Captain Morrison's voice cut through the observation room. Lieutenant Chen, my office. Now, Sarah found the captain staring at a priority transmission from Earth Command. His expression told her everything she needed to know. "They want us to terminate the specimens," Morrison said without preamble. "The Arcturus Confederation is claiming we violated their territory. They're demanding we destroy all evidence of their research program, including the subjects." "Sir, that's murder," Sarah protested. "These creatures are sentient. The cubs are just children. They're classified as experimental bioweapons, Lieutenant, not children." Morrison's face softened slightly. "I've bought us 72 hours by claiming we need time to prepare proper containment protocols. Use it wisely." Back in the observation room, Sarah found Brooks practically vibrating with excitement. "You need to see this," he whispered, leading her to the window. Aurora had arranged scraps of metal and plastic into distinct patterns on the floor. As they watched, she used her neural spines to create corresponding light patterns above each arrangement. "She's trying to communicate," Sarah breathed. "She's creating a visual language." "Not just that," Brooks said. "Look at the patterns. They're mathematical sequences. She's showing us she understands complex concepts." He pointed to where the cubs were attempting to mimic their mother's patterns, their tiny spines flickering with determined concentration. A warning klaxon shattered the moment. Rodriguez burst into the room, her face grim. "We've got company. Arcturus enforcement vessel just dropped out of hyperspace. They're demanding immediate access to inspect for illegal biological contraband." Sarah's mind raced. They had no weapons that could match an Arcturus warship, no legal standing to protect their discovery. But as she watched Aurora gather her cubs closer, those intelligent eyes meeting hers through the window, she knew she couldn't let them die. "Brooks, how much of their genetic data have you decoded?" "Maybe 30%. Why?" "Because we're about to test a theory." Sarah keyed the intercom. "Aurora, I need you to listen carefully. We're going to help you, but I need you to trust us." The Nexus Hound's spines rippled with colors Sarah had never seen before. One of the cubs pressed its nose against the window, leaving a small foggy mark that faded slowly. "Lieutenant," Rodriguez warned, "what are you planning?" Sarah was already moving. "Brooks, get me everything you can about their neural link capabilities. Rodriguez, I need you to prep the shuttle for emergency launch. And someone get me why. We're going to need some creative engineering." The next 12 hours were a blur of frantic preparation. Y modified the shuttle's sensor suite while Brooks synthesized a crude neural interface based on his analysis of the Nexus Hound's biology. Sarah spent hours with Aurora, using light patterns and mathematical sequences to convey their desperate plan. "This is insane," Rodriguez muttered as they made final preparations. "If we're wrong about their intelligence level, about their ability to understand." "We're not wrong," Sarah insisted. She could feel it in her bones, in the way Aurora watched them work, in how the cubs practiced the escape route they'd mapped out using light patterns. The Arcturus vessel was now less than 6 hours away. Captain Morrison had run out of excuses to delay them. "Lieutenant," he called over the comm, "whatever you're planning, I need to be able to honestly say I had no knowledge of it." "Understood." Sarah smiled grimly. "Perfectly, sir." As emergency klaxons blared announcing the Arcturus ship's approach, Sarah made her final preparations. The neural interface Brooks had created hummed against her temple, ready to attempt something never before tried. Direct communication with an engineered species. Aurora stood ready in the modified shuttle bay, cubs secured in a specially designed compartment. Her neural spines pulsed in the pattern they'd practiced, the one that meant ready. "Brooks, start the interface," Sarah commanded. "Let's see if we can really talk to each other." The world exploded into color and sensation as the neural link activated. Sarah gasped as her mind touched Aurora's, not with words, but with concepts, emotions, memories. She saw the labs where Aurora was created, felt the pain of experimental procedures, the joy of her cub's birth, the terror of abandonment, and threading through it all, an intelligence that burned like starfire. "Help us, Aurora communicated through patterns of thought and light. Help us become more than what they made us to be. Sarah sent back feelings of determination, of promise, of protection. She showed Aurora images of Earth, of sanctuaries, where unique beings could be studied and protected, of a future where her cubs could grow up free from fear. The Arcturus ship was closing fast. Soon they would dock, and their deception would be discovered. Sarah took a deep breath and opened her mind fully to the neural link. Now we find out if humanity's greatest strength is enough, she whispered. Our ability to choose compassion over fear, life over protocol, hope over hatred. Aurora's spines blazed like the dawn of a new world, and together they prepared to rewrite the story of two species. The neural link between Sarah and Aurora burned like liquid starlight, transforming abstract thoughts into a symphony of shared consciousness. Through their connection, Sarah experienced fragments of Aurora's past, the sterile laboratories where she was created, the endless tests designed to hone her into a perfect weapon, and the profound moment when she chose to protect life rather than take it. The Arcturus vessel loomed closer, its docking procedures already initiated with the Hawking. Through their link, Aurora's anxiety rippled in waves of crimson and obsidian. They come to unmake us. Aurora's thoughts flickered through the neural interface, to erase their mistake. You're not a mistake, Sarah projected back, her determination flowing through their shared consciousness. You're the next step in evolution, just not the one they intended. Wei's voice crackled over the comm. Lieutenant, I've modified the shuttle's stealth systems according to the patterns Aurora showed us. If her understanding of Arcturus scanning technology is accurate, we might have a chance. The cubs, now huddled in their secured compartment, synchronized their neural patterns with their mothers. Sarah gasped as their consciousness brushed against hers. Minds young, but blazing with potential, already capable of abstract thought and complex emotion. Rodriguez stood at the shuttle's weapons station, her expression torn between duty and the wonder of what they'd discovered. Arcturus boarding party is preparing to dock. Whatever we're doing, we need to do it now. Brooks, Sarah called. Status on the biological masking field. Online, he replied, fingers dancing across his console. Aurora's neural patterns helped us recreate their original containment protocols. As far as their scanners can tell, this shuttle is completely empty. Through their link, Sarah felt Aurora's approval. The Nexus Hounds had been subjected to these scans countless times during their creation. Now that same technology would help them escape. Captain Morrison's voice cut through the tension. Lieutenant Chen, I'm about to welcome aboard an Arcturus inspection team. I trust the containment bay will be completely empty when they arrive. Absolutely nothing to find, sir, Sarah confirmed, allowing herself a small smile. The plan was simple in theory, insane in practice. While the Arcturus team searched the Hawking, their modified shuttle would detach under the guise of routine maintenance. Aurora's knowledge of Arcturus protocols, combined with Wei's engineering brilliance, would hopefully keep them undetected long enough to reach the nearby asteroid belt. What happened after that? Sarah pushed the thought aside. One impossible thing at a time. Ready, Aurora's thoughts pulsed through the link. The cubs' spines flickered in perfect harmony with their mothers, creating patterns that spoke of trust and determination. Initiating maintenance protocols, Wei announced as the shuttle systems hummed to life. Detaching in 3, 2, 1. The shuttle slipped free from the Hawking just as the Arcturus vessel completed its docking procedure. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as they glided away from the ships, every moment expecting alarms to blare. Through the neural link, Aurora helped guide their trajectory, her intimate knowledge of Arcturus blind spots proving invaluable. The cubs maintained a perfect neural silence, their discipline remarkable for one so young. Multiple life signs boarding the Hawking, Rodriguez reported tensely. They're starting their inspection. They were halfway to the asteroid belt when everything went wrong. Energy spike, Wei shouted. They're powering up their long-range scanners. Sarah felt Aurora's panic mirror her own. The cub's neural patterns flared with fear. Standard stealth systems wouldn't hide them from a focused scan. "Let me help," Aurora's thoughts surged through their link. "We were made to deceive their technology. Let me show you." Sarah felt Aurora's consciousness expand through their connection. The Nexus Hound's neural patterns shifting into configurations she'd never seen before. The cubs joined in perfect synchronization, their combined energy creating a field that rippled through the shuttle systems. "What's happening?" Rodriguez demanded as their instruments flickered. "She's adapting," Brooks whispered, staring at his readings. "Their neural network is generating a countermeasure frequency. It's beautiful." Sarah watched in awe as patterns of light danced across Aurora's spines, the cubs mimicking her exactly. Through their link, she understood. The Nexus Hounds weren't just hiding from the scans, they were becoming ghosts in the machine, using the very modifications their creators had given them to vanish completely. "Arcturus vessel is signaling the Hawking," Way reported. They're saying their inspection is complete. No signs of biological contamination detected. "We are more than they made us," Aurora's thoughts rippled with pride. "We choose what our gifts mean." The asteroid belt loomed ahead, its dense collection of rocks offering perfect cover for the next phase of their escape. But Sarah knew they'd achieved something far more significant than just avoiding detection. Through their neural link, she felt Aurora's deep satisfaction, the cub's growing confidence, and something else, a sense of possibility that stretched beyond survival. These beings, created as weapons, had chosen to use their abilities to protect and create instead of destroy. "We'll find you a home," Sarah promised through their connection. "Somewhere you can thrive, study, grow. Show the galaxy what you truly are." Aurora's response flowed through their link in waves of starlight and hope. "We already have a home. With those who chose to see us as more than weapons. With humans who understand that the strongest bonds are forged by choice, not design." The cubs' neural patterns chimed in agreement, their young minds already grasping concepts their creators never intended them to understand. Compassion, freedom, the power of choosing one's own path. As their shuttle disappeared into the asteroid field, Sarah realized they weren't just saving 4 remarkable beings. They were helping to birth a new form of consciousness, one that combined the best of human and alien potential. And through their bond, they would redefine what was possible when species chose to rise above their programming and reach for something greater. The asteroid belt should have been their sanctuary. Instead, it became their battlefield. Multiple warships dropping out of hyperspace, Way announced, his voice tight with tension. "Arcturus signatures. They're not buying our disappearing act anymore." Through the neural link, Sarah felt Aurora's calculating presence. The Nexus Hound's military conditioning was surfacing, not as the mindless aggression her creators intended, but as strategic brilliance. The cubs huddled closer to their mother, their neural patterns harmonizing to strengthen their collective shield. "They hunt us with machines that knew our making," Aurora's thoughts flowed through their connection. "But they do not know our unmaking." Sarah understood. The Arcturus Confederation had created the Nexus Hounds using their most advanced technology. But they never anticipated their weapons would evolve beyond their programming, developing abilities that transcended their original design. 5 ships, Rodriguez reported grimly. "They're moving to surround the asteroid field." Standard search pattern. Brooks looked up from his console, eyes wide. "They're not just searching. Those energy readings, they're charging weapons." The first blast struck a nearby asteroid, shattering it into thousands of fragments. The debris cloud spread outward, threatening to overwhelm their shuttle's shields. "We can use this," Aurora projected, her neural spines pulsing with intense patterns. The cubs' spines flickered in response, their young minds adding to their mother's tactical assessment. Sarah saw the strategy forming in their shared consciousness. Way, kill all power except life support. Rodriguez, divert shield energy to the neural interface. "That's suicide," Rodriguez protested. "One hit from that debris. Trust them." Sarah commanded. Through their strengthened link, Aurora's plan unfolded like a blooming flower of light and shadow. The Nexus Hounds had been created to manipulate energy fields, to become invisible to enemy sensors. But Aurora had discovered something her makers never intended: the ability to extend that manipulation to other objects. As another explosion rocked nearby space, Aurora's neural patterns surged through their link. Sarah gasped as she felt the cubs join in, their combined consciousness reaching out to touch the debris field itself. Through their shared perception, she saw how they were bending energy around each fragment, creating a complex dance of false signatures. "This is impossible," Brooks whispered, staring at his readings. "The debris, it's generating phantom signals. Dozens of them. Hundreds. On the pursuing ship's sensors, the asteroid field would appear alive with potential targets, each piece of debris masked to look like a fleeing vessel. 100 escaped experiments, scattering in every direction. We were made to hunt." Aurora's thoughts carried a fierce pride. "Now we make them hunt shadows." The Arcturus ships fell for the deception, splitting up to chase multiple targets. Their weapons fire increased, creating more debris, more chaos, more phantom signals for Aurora and her cubs to manipulate. But maintaining the massive deception was taking its toll. Through their neural link, Sarah felt Aurora's strength flagging, saw how the cubs were pushing themselves to their limits. "We need to find a way out," Sarah projected through their connection. "You can't maintain this forever." There, Aurora's thoughts directed their attention to a massive asteroid tumbling slowly through space. Within, Sarah understood immediately. Way, full power to sensors. "That asteroid, what's its composition?" "Heavy metals," Way replied after a moment. "And there's a cavity inside. Natural formation, but big enough for the shuttle." Another explosion rocked space behind them. Through their link, Sarah felt one of the cubs falter, its neural pattern wavering. Aurora's concern flooded their connection, maternal instinct warring with tactical necessity. "Rodriguez, plot us a course," Sarah ordered, threading the needle through all this debris. "Already on it," Rodriguez replied, her earlier skepticism replaced by fierce determination. "But we'll need perfect timing with their sensor ghosts to mask our approach." "We will give you time," Aurora promised, her consciousness brushing reassuringly against her exhausted cubs. One final deception. Sarah felt their plan form in the neural link. It was beautiful, dangerous, and absolutely insane, just like everything else about this escape. "Everyone brace," she commanded. "This is going to get interesting." Aurora and her cubs poured their remaining strength into one massive burst of energy manipulation. To the Arcturus ship's sensors, it would appear as if their quarry had scattered in 100 different directions at once, a final desperate attempt at escape. In the chaos that followed, their shuttle slipped silently toward the asteroid's hidden cavity. Each moment felt eternal as they navigated through the debris field, trusting in Aurora's dying deception and Rodriguez's piloting skills. The cavity's entrance loomed before them, barely wider than their shuttle. Through their neural link, Sarah felt Aurora's consciousness beginning to fade, the cubs already unconscious from the strain. "Hold on," she whispered, both aloud and through their connection. "Just hold on." Rodriguez's hands flew across the controls as they threaded through the narrow opening. The shuttle's wings scraped stone as they entered the asteroid's heart, but they made it. "Powering down," Way reported. "All systems silent." Sarah rushed to check on Aurora and her cubs. The neural link was faint now, but she could still feel them, their minds exhausted but alive. Against all odds, they had done it. Through the asteroid's thick walls, they heard the muted sound of explosions as the Arcturus ships continued their futile search. But here in this dark cavity, surrounded by meters of signal-blocking rock, they were finally safe. As emergency lights cast a soft glow through the shuttle's interior, Sarah watched Aurora gather her sleeping cubs close. The Nexus Hound's neural spines flickered weakly, But the pattern they formed was one Sarah had come to recognize. Hope. We are more than weapons now, Aurora's thoughts whispered through their fading link. We are becoming something new. Yes, Sarah replied, both through their connection and aloud. Something they never imagined possible. Something free. As the sounds of pursuit faded into the void of space, Sarah Chen realized they had accomplished more than just a daring escape. They had proven that the greatest weapons were not those of destruction, but of transformation. And in doing so, they had begun writing a new chapter in the story of both their species. 3 months later, Earth's most secure xenobiology research facility hummed with activity. Through reinforced observation windows, Sarah watched Aurora lead her cubs through increasingly complex neural pattern exercises. Their spines painted the air with symphonies of light, each pattern more sophisticated than the last. The implications are staggering. Dr. Helena Martinez, Earth's leading xenogeneticist, murmured beside her. They're not just communicating, they're creating new forms of shared consciousness, teaching themselves to interface with technology in ways we never thought possible. Sarah touched the neural interface that had become a permanent part of her life. Through it, she felt Aurora's acknowledgement of their conversation, tinged with amusement. The cubs, now nearly twice their original size, paused their practice to send waves of greeting through the link. They were never meant to be weapons, Sarah said softly. They were meant to be teachers. The facility's main door slid open, admitting Captain Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, and a delegation of both human and alien diplomats. The Arcturus Confederation's recent attempt to clean up their abandoned experiment had backfired spectacularly when evidence of their illegal weapons program leaked to the Galactic Council. Lieutenant Chen, Morrison called. Or should I say, Director Chen. The council representatives are ready for their demonstration. Sarah straightened her new uniform, black with silver trim, bearing the insignia of the newly formed Interspecies Communication Division. Aurora, are you ready to show them what we've learned? Through their link, Aurora's response carried both pride and purpose. The cubs gathered around their mother, their neural patterns synchronizing into a harmony that still took Sarah's breath away. Distinguished representatives, Sarah addressed the delegation. What you're about to witness isn't just a demonstration of communication between species. It's proof that the greatest breakthroughs come not from forcing evolution, but from allowing it to find its own path. The observation room darkened. Aurora and her cubs began their display, a symphony of light and neural energy that filled the chamber with living data. Through their shared connection, Sarah helped translate the complexity of their communication into terms the diplomats could understand. We were born of war, Aurora projected, her thoughts now clear enough that even those without neural interfaces could perceive them as patterns of light and emotion. But we choose to serve life. The cubs added their own harmonies to the neural broadcast. Where once they had been taught to coordinate pack attacks, they now demonstrated their ability to link with medical diagnostic systems, to detect patterns in massive data sets, to bridge the gaps between organic and artificial intelligence. Remarkable, the Galactic Council's chief scientist breathed. They transcended their programming entirely, created an entirely new form of consciousness. Sarah felt Aurora's satisfaction through their link. We are what we choose to be, the Nexus Hound projected, as are all living things when given the freedom to choose. The youngest cub, whom Sarah had named Nova for her brilliantly glowing spines, broke from the formation to approach the window. Her neural pattern reached out, not with aggression as her creators had intended, but with curiosity and invitation. One by one, the diplomats accepted the offered neural interfaces. Their gasps of wonder filled the room as they experienced firsthand the depth and beauty of Nexus Hound consciousness. This changes everything, the Arcturus representative admitted, his earlier hostility replaced by awe. Our attempt to create perfect weapons led to something far more valuable. It led to understanding, Sarah corrected gently, and to hope. Through their deepening connection, Aurora shared images of the future she envisioned. Nexus hounds working alongside humans and aliens alike, their unique abilities helping to bridge the gaps between species, between organic and artificial life, between different forms of consciousness itself. The cubs added their own dreams to the neural broadcast, of more of their kind being freed from abandoned facilities, of learning and growing beyond the limitations their creators had imposed, of helping to build a galaxy where diversity of consciousness was celebrated rather than feared. "We're establishing similar facilities on other worlds," Admiral Morrison announced. "Safe havens where other engineered species can be rehabilitated, understood, integrated into galactic society. The Nexus Hounds will be our guides in this new frontier. We will teach what we have learned," Aurora projected. "That the strongest weapons are not those that destroy, but those that transform. That the greatest power lies not in control, but in connection." Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she watched the cubs demonstrate their latest achievement, the ability to interface directly with the facility's medical systems, using their neural patterns to diagnose and help heal injuries at the cellular level. They were created to be the perfect predators, she told the assembled diplomats. Instead, they chose to become the perfect partners. And in doing so, they've shown us that the future belongs not to those who seek to dominate evolution, but to those who help it flourish in unexpected ways. Through their neural link, Sarah felt Aurora's warm agreement. The cubs' patterns chimed in, their young minds already reaching toward new possibilities, new ways of bridging the gaps between species. "We are no longer weapons," Aurora projected, her neural spines blazing with colors of dawn. "We are bridges, teachers, healers. This is what we choose to be." As the delegation departed, filled with plans for new cooperation and understanding, Sarah remained in the observation room. She watched Aurora gather her cubs close, their neural patterns merging into a tapestry of light and possibility. "You've changed everything," she whispered through their link. "You've shown us what's possible when we look past our fears to see the potential in all forms of life." Aurora's response flowed through their connection like starlight. "No, friend Sarah, we have changed everything. Humans and Nexus Hounds together. And this is only the beginning." The cubs' patterns sparkled with agreement as they started their next training sequence, their spines painting the air with dreams of a future where the boundaries between species were bridges to be crossed rather than barriers to be feared. Sarah Chen smiled, knowing that their story would inspire generations to come, not as a tale of weapons and war, but as proof that the greatest transformations come when we choose to see the light in others, even in the darkest of places.